Okay, looking forward to Saturday noon game. I'm excited about a noon game. I don't know about you guys, but this time of the year is a good time for a noon game. It's going to be the warmest part of the day. It's going to, it's after daylight savings ends, so it's not real like it's really that early. It gets dark at like 5 o'clock or something like that now, anyway. So it's kind of like a 3 o'clock game earlier in the year, right? So I think it should be awesome. I hear that this is a sellout, which is great. Students have requested a lot of tickets, which is great. Appreciate the support from everybody. It's what is it? True blue. Everybody wear blue. I'm wearing blue, so everybody wear blue. That's great. So that's good weekend ahead. Looking forward to Saturday. Got quality opponent, unbelievable program. That we get to play on Saturday. The history with us and TCU is pretty good. Obviously, coming in together at the same time and playing each other now for the the seventh time, I guess. So the seventh time we've played. And these have been great games. You look at the history with us and them. I mean, there's been a couple of overtime games. There's been some last-second field goal games. I mean, they've been wars now, and both programs with really pretty much the same tradition of being kind of in the group of five discussion and winning a lot of football games in the respective conferences of the Mountain West and the Big East. And don't forget they joined the Big East for a couple months and then went to the Big 12, and then we followed their lead and went to the Big 12. So a lot of history between the two programs, and got the utmost respect for Gary Patterson, elder statesman in our conference. Been there, I think, 18 years or so as the head coach, but been there longer than that, and has done as good a job as anybody in college football over that span. So defensive minded, not a better defensive coordinator in the country than Gary. And this year is no different when it comes to that side of the ball. They haven't had the ball bounce their way, which happens periodically. It's happened to us, obviously, and does kind of happen to them a couple of times this year. But it's not like they don't play anybody. I mean, that you can win games and that when the ball doesn't bounce your way that way. But in the Big 12, it's a little harder. So looking at losses to Ohio State and Texas, Texas Tech, those guys are obviously good football teams. So we know what we're getting with TCU this weekend, and we'll be ready to go. They're still first, second, and dang near every defensive category that exists in the Big 12. They're really good up front, even though they've lost some guys to some injuries, whether it's a D-line or safety or linebacker. They're still replacing those guys with good quality players. So same scheme, same coaches, continuity, doing a really good job of playing defense. And it's always been hard to move the ball on them. It's always been hard to scheme them up and play against them. They do a great job with their technique, and whether it's getting off blocks or rushing the passer or sound tackling, honest in coverage. I mean, they're always as good as there is. So. Their D lines, the bang. How do you say Ben, Tony? Bawanagu? That's how you pronounce the last name?
I think so, yeah.
Well, that dude's really good. And the other end, 91 Collier is really good. Same two guys that we faced last year, minus a guy. And then inside, they lost Blacklock earlier in the year, who was spectacular, but got two other guys that are just as good. Inside linebacker wise, they got guys that can run. Corners is pretty much the same two corners they had last year. They've had kind of a rotating deal going on at safety, but it doesn't matter who plays these spots in a Gary Patterson defense. It doesn't matter who the bodies are. They're going to be coached up. They're going to be sound with their technique. They're going to play hard. They're going to be where they're supposed to be, and they're going to play sound defense. So will probably be the stiffest test that we have had to date for our offense. They just do a really good job on that side, and we know that, we respect that, and we're looking forward to playing against it. Offensively, They have obviously lost a couple of key components to what they've done. Obviously have their quarterback went down. They had kind of committed to him. He's the guy, and then when that guy goes down, it kind of sets you back a little bit, which is what's happened to him. I know he tried to play through his shoulder for a couple of games, tough kid, and then just got to a point where he couldn't. So insert the Collins kid, kind of a unique story with him. I don't know why, I need to ask Gary this, but I don't know why TCU's recruiting in Connecticut. Got the right tackle who's an enormous dude, 6'7", the Yang kid, 328. They got him when where they were recruiting him, they got to know this quarterback. And the quarterback went to Penn, played a little bit as a freshman, and then transferred to TCU. So he's going to get better and better. He's a big kid, 6'5", 215, throws the ball well. Obviously a smart young man. And will get better and better and better as the reps go, then he'll go. You can tell the timing's not quite where it needs to be with all these receivers, which they got just a bundle of receivers that are as good as I've seen. Fast guys, even taking away Turpin, who they'd kind of, designed their offense around because that kid was such a good player. You take him out, you insert two freshmen that look just like him, the Barber kid and the Davis kid, 4 and 12. Those guys are young, but are dynamic players. Keep your eye on one, Rager, as good as a receiver as we've seen all year, as fast as a receiver as we've seen all year. 2, Austin, same stuff. So these guys got talent, they got players. The timing is going to continue to get better. And we need to understand that. We know how good their backs are. Six Anderson's been here for 3 years. He's a really good player, 33. You want to give me this name too, Tony?
O'Shea. It's Shewo Alanalu.
There you go. He practices that. I don't. I call him by numbers. This one's number 33, and he's big. He's 6'3", 230. He's talented. We saw both these guys last year. They're nothing new to us. They are dangerous, can change the game. Sonny Cumbie, known him for a long time. He's doing a good job with those guys. And, up front, they've always been big. They've always been good. They're a tick off based on timing, and we got to make sure that we do a good job of defending those guys. Special teams has always been one of their strong suits for these guys. They pay attention to it. They've had a couple of different punters. I mean, they did a great job. The Nunez guy last year of pinning us into the 5, inside the 5, 4 or 5 times last year. I mean, it was unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it. I've seen played with some good golfers that can stick a 9-iron like that, but this guy did the same thing with his foot, but they've had 2 different punters, but they pay attention to it and they utilize it the appropriate way. I've had 2 different kickers. The Song guy's been around there for a little while, and the kicker last year I thought was one of the better ones that the Bunts kid on the kickoffs, as far as his placements on the kickoffs, he does a really good job with that. Their return game's been as good as anyone. I mean, we know Turpin had 8 touchdowns. Well, he was a part of that, but their schemes and the people up front that were blocking were a part of that as well. And that hadn't changed. The schemes and who's blocking for them and how much they pay attention to it hasn't changed. Like I said, with Rager, number 1, and Davis, the new kid, number 12, they're dangerous as they can be. So our coverage units have to continue to make sure that we're on top of things and we do what we need to do to help win us the game. So that's where we're at. They're 2-1 in Morgantown over the last 3 times that they've been there. So we know what we're getting with this bunch, and you're only as good as your next one. We got some good positive stuff ahead of us, and this is the next thing and the only thing that we'll be talking about. Yep, questions?
Dana, offensive line, you've been real complimentary since the game on Saturday. What was it you thought they did best? Physical, mental? Where was the biggest improvement you saw?
Yeah, both. I thought I was happy with our coaching staff with scheming things up. I thought we did a good job of scheming some things up. And then you know, our backs ran hard. I think, you know, we kind of settled in with McCoy and Petaway. Got those guys the ball a little bit more than we have and didn't rotate as much, which I thought was important. Those guys played as hard as they've played, ran as hard, made a couple of guys miss, stayed on their feet. You know, so that was certainly good. But the O-line just had a little different nature to them. You know, they did a better job with their pad level. They did a good job. They did a good job of IDing things, which we've talked about that, but they did a better job of just finishing blocks. You know, their pads were lower, and you know, I could talk about Wesco for the remainder of this press conference. I mean, he's one of, when I say O-line, I count him. You know, he's one of the 6 guys that are in the box that does a good job. This dude is blocking as good as I've seen a tight end block at this level. He's really doing that good of a job. And he's getting involved in the pass game, as we all see. But they did a good job with their pad level, blocking people, finishing people, getting up to the second level, and getting on people as well. So Texas hadn't given up 200 yards rushing in like 20-some games, and we were able to do that, which is why we were able to win.
Speaking of Wesco, you've had him get involved more in the pass game recently, but now Giovanni Haskins is getting more involved the last 2 games. So what does that do when you have not 1 but 2 tight ends really getting involved?
Yeah, it makes us more multiple, and it makes us harder to defend. I don't care which of our 5 skill guys that are on the field at any one time, any of them could get the ball. You know, so whether it's a tight end or, you know, Giovanni does a little bit more flex out stuff. He's still technically a tight end, but a little bit more flex out stuff, is able to be into the box, line up as a true tight end if we need him to. But it makes it harder for us to defend when all those guys can touch the ball. They got to cover all of them. And Giovanni's just now kind of coming into his own. You know, he's still young. He, you know, obviously redshirted, hadn't played college football yet, so is a big target that has really good hand-eye coordination and is improving with his blocking abilities. So the better they get, the more we'll use them.
Texas looked like it was trying to do a lot of the same stuff with drop 8 that Iowa State had. Just why was this so much more successful this week against kind of a similar scheme?
Well, I'm getting really tired of talking about Iowa State. We're not going to let that define us, okay? And, you know, I was happy with our coaches and players, you know, not letting that define us. That's not who we were. And so I thought we kind of buried that going against Baylor and playing the most complete game that we've played all year. Then you go on the road and you play another top 20 team. You know, and you play good enough to win, you know, so, you know, that's who we are, you know, so I think we're, you know, I mean, it's college football. Those games are going to happen. I'm tired of talking about it, but we hadn't forgot it. So we got to respect our opponent. This is another good opportunity for that to be able to happen. TCU beat Iowa State. So that'll probably get mentioned. And we got to prepare hard and practice hard and go play hard. And I'm certain that we'll do that this Saturday.
You have a big carrot you can dangle in front of this team for the remainder of the season, which is the playoff game. Do you use that at all when you start bringing in TCU? That, hey, look, you know, we've still got a lot to play for.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about we don't talk about playoff stuff. I mean, I don't know if you're referring to the CFP stuff, which we pay no attention to, or the Big 12 championship, which that's our goal. You can say, well, that's a lofty goal if you want to. But that's everybody's goal in the Big 12, is to play in that game. And so that's what we're striving for. You know, and the only way you remain in that conversation is if you play good the next week. So the only thing that we talk about in here is TCU. That's it. You know, we don't talk about scenarios. We don't talk about, you know, who would be in that game. We certainly don't talk about what happens after that game. So it's 100% TCU and what we can do to be able to win that game.
You've had kind of extreme opposite experiences on the road your past 2 games, right? But pretty good when you win one, I'm guessing.
Extreme opposites.
Experiences.
on the road.
I
Yeah.
don't want to mention the other school, right? But like
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
yeah. But they're really good on the road, TCU, for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think you understand like what that means. But like what's the difference, I guess, in being okay on the road and being, you know,
I think we've been okay on the road too.
being like season defining, program defining.
You got to win on the road. I mean, if you don't, I mean, you're going to play 5 guaranteed, either 4 or 5 based on what year it is. So, I mean, that's last time I checked, about half your games every other year. So you better be able to play on the road. We're used to doing it and winning, and they're used to doing it and winning. You don't become a perennial 10-win season program like they are without winning on the road a lot. You know, they've won twice here. That'd get mentioned. You know, we don't. I mean, we've won in Austin before. You know, so that gave us confidence going into Austin. You know, we've won in Lubbock before, so that gave us confidence going into Lubbock. It's been over a decade since we've beat 2 top 20 teams on the road or whatever it is. So, you know, that's something that we're proud of. And the next time we go on the road, which is going to be in a week, we're going to have to talk about that and expect to go win.
Their 2 DNs have almost half of their sacks. Are they just beating people and getting the quarterback?
Yeah, they are. They're good players. You know, it's when you're 6'5", 275, and 6'4", 250, and twitchy, you can probably get to the quarterback. So I'm glad we have 2 capable tackles that can block, and they're gonna be a handful. They're gonna be a challenge. They were last year. You know, Colton had his hands full with 15 last year, and Yadney had his hands full with 91 in the number 9 they had last year, who ended up having more sacks than 15 at the end of the year. I'm glad he's gone. They always have those pass rush guys. You know, they do a good job of recruiting them and developing them and coaching them and, you know, utilizing their technique, you know, keeping them wide, letting them do their thing. They do a good job with that. So we got our hands full with those 2 guys.
Play attached, I guess, too.
Say again?
Got a tight end a little bit that can help there.
Yeah, we can do some of that. We hadn't done that a whole bunch. You know, Wesco spends most of his time in the backfield. But there's different things that we can do with those type bodies. The chip, you know, we did that last week with a couple of Texas's guys. You know, there's a couple of times Wesco came down and, you know, hit the defensive end and wiped them out. And so the tackle was just sitting there going, I don't have anything to do. I mean, because Wesco's playing so well, honestly. Just watch the video. But there's some things that we can do to get the ball out quick. We don't want to sit Will back there 50 times if we don't have to with those guys coming off the edge like that.
Dana, people talk about chemistry a lot. Define it. Define what chemistry is and what makes it. How does it develop? And you know, why was this team this year able to bounce back from losing a game and then to win close game? I mean,
yeah, chemistry is it's everything. I mean, there's good teams that aren't good because chemistry is not good. You know, how do you don't just like snap a finger and they have good morale or good chemistry or any of that. I mean, you got to develop that over time, you know, and I think we've done a good job of developing that over time. And, you know, it goes back to, you know, those 15 guys I talk about a lot. You know, those guys are really close, and they all like each other, and it doesn't matter where they're from or what side of the ball they're on or any of that. They genuinely like each other, and it's important to them. And that rubs off on younger guys and other guys. So you got to have really good senior leadership and veteran experience. And if you don't, then you're in trouble. And I think last year we had some of that chemistry issues last year with older guys that didn't allow us to be able to pull together the way that we needed to. This year we have a group that is, you know, chemistry-wise is pretty good, and it means a lot to them. So I know they're gonna keep working hard, and today's an opportunity to go out there and work hard and prepare for a good TCU team.
Going back to your running game, scaling it back to 2 people. I think Sinkfield played. Letty got 4.
Yeah, Letty
carries.
played. I think Letty played like 20 snaps. Sink's, you know, he's still still battling through that ankle now a little bit. You know, it's nothing Sink's done. You know, I got to look for ways to get him out there and play more because he was arguably our best back coming out of spring. You know, and Letty's a force as a freshman. So, you know, but we're not snapping the ball a lot. I mean, we're averaging, what, 65 snaps a game, 68 snaps a game. That's low. You know, and there's only one ball, you know, so, you know, there's been times, you know, I remember, what was it, 2014, we went to Maryland and snapped it 120 times, and we were down to our fourth back in the fourth quarter, and that dude needed to carry the ball like 8 times, 10 times in the fourth quarter. I mean, that's happened before, and it's going to happen again. Just in that kind of game where you're only going to get, we knew we were only going to get 10, 12 possessions because of how we play and how they were going to play. And we only got 10. That's just not a lot of snaps. So we felt like those two guys were veterans. I was proud of both of them, Petaway and McCoy. Juniors, they've been in that game before, and they were running hard, so let's keep doing what we're doing. You know, that could be a totally different thing this weekend.
Something else you've added or adjusted lately is you've moved around and pre-snap stuff and kind of sleight of hand stuff. Any origination point where you all sat down and said we got to do that, or is that just something that you've brought back?
It's just game planning, and we felt like that was necessary against Texas for what they do defensively. Make them declare, and you got a pretty smart quarterback that sees things, and when you move around people like that, and they got to tip their hand at some point. And if you tip your hand to 7, he's going to get you.